For centuries, you and I have operated under a very specific and frankly a very arrogant assumption. We look at the sprawling American cities we've built, the concrete, the technology, and we just assume we sit completely alone at the apex of conscious thought. We think we are the only minds capable of truly observing the world. But we're not. We have profoundly underestimated a dark, ancient intelligence living right beside us. In this explainer, we're going to carefully lay out the meticulously gathered evidence that suggests we have accidentally hosted a rival intellect, one that hides in plain sight, watching us from the shadows, the power lines, and the very edges of our streets. To really understand the gravity of this, we have to let go of our human-centric worldview for a moment. Consider a well-documented case in Seattle. A young girl began leaving food out for a local crow, and pretty soon that crow began leaving things in return. A shiny button, a piece of glass, a tiny screw. Over months, this pile of objects just grew. Now, it's easy to write this off as a cute animal trick, right? But it's not. This was a calculated, cross-species social exchange. The crow was reciprocating. It was establishing a transactional relationship with a member of a completely different, supposedly dominant species. And that forces us to ask a deeply unsettling question. What if humans are not alone in conscious thought? For decades, the scientific consensus was pretty comfortable. We just assumed that high-level intelligence required a mammalian brain. Specifically, we believed the human neocortex, that folded outer layer of our brains, was the exclusive, absolute requirement for higher thinking. The assumption was, no neocortex, no complex reasoning. But crows completely shatter that biological assumption. They don't even have a neocortex. Instead, evolution gave them the avian pallium. It's an alternative, hyperdense architecture for advanced cognition. It's literally a completely different evolutionary road that arrived at the exact same destination: extreme, high-level intelligence. To grasp just how alien this brain structure really is, we have to look at the numbers. Inside the incredibly small space of a crow's skull, their brain contains approximately 1.5 billion neurons. 1.5 billion. The sheer density of that is something we previously thought was physically impossible in a brain of this size. It's essentially a biological supercomputer, packed perfectly into a space no bigger than a walnut.
And that density illustrates the terrifying efficiency of their biology. To put it into perspective, a crow's brain is 60 times smaller than the brain of a macaque monkey. 60 times. Yet neuron for neuron, when you adjust for size, crows are operating at, or even beyond, primate levels of intelligence. They are pulling off the cognitive heavy lifting of an ape, but they're using a mere fraction of the biological hardware to do it.
Because of this dense neural network, they're capable of behaviors we once swore were impossible for birds. Take the New Caledonian crows. They don't just pick up random found objects to use. They actually manufacture tools. They will intentionally trim pandanus leaves to create these barbed hooks to pull insects out of wood. And here's the critical part. They do this using recognizable design standards, and they teach those specific designs to the next generation. We call this inherited technology. It's the accumulation and generational transmission of physical tool design. Until we observed this, we firmly believed inherited culture and technology were uniquely human traits. We thought we were the only ones who built upon the knowledge of our ancestors. Well, we were wrong.
The sheer, cold, calculated reasoning becomes absolutely undeniable when you put them in a laboratory setting. There's this famous experiment with a crow named Betty. She was presented with food trapped inside a tube, completely unreachable. Nearby, researchers placed a straight piece of wire. Now keep in mind, this is a human-made material she had never encountered in nature. Betty looked at the unreachable food. She assessed the problem. She conceptualized the exact shape she would need to reach it. And then she deliberately bent that foreign wire into a functional hook and extracted her prize on the very first try. Let that sink in. There is no evolutionary instinct for bending human-made wire. That was spontaneous, analytical problem-solving.
And their intelligence doesn't just navigate physical space, it actually extends into time. Most of the animal kingdom lives perpetually in the present moment. But corvids, that's the broader family that includes crows and western scrub jays, have demonstrated something scientists call mental time travel. In experiments, researchers found these birds deliberately caching or hiding food in specific locations where they anticipated they would be hungry the following morning. They weren't reacting to their current hunger, they were projecting themselves into the future, planning for a physical and emotional state that literally did not exist yet. They are actively thinking about tomorrow. But it gets deeper. They don't just think about their own future, they think about what others are thinking. This brings us to a concept called theory of mind.
When corvids hide food, they are acutely aware if they're being watched. If an observer is present, they will casually wait for that observer to leave and then rapidly relocate the food to a new hiding spot. But the chilling reality of this? They only do this if they themselves have stolen food from another bird in the past. An innocent bird doesn't assume it's going to be robbed. A thief, however, assumes everyone else is a thief. They are psychologically modeling the manipulative intentions of another mind, based entirely on their own past behavior.
So if they can model the minds of other birds, they can certainly model ours. At the University of Washington, researchers conducted what is now a landmark study, and it revealed a meticulously maintained culture of surveillance operating right above an American college campus. The researchers wore specific, distinct masks while they temporarily trapped some crows for tagging. Later, when they released the birds and walked through the campus wearing those exact same masks, they were aggressively harassed. And here's the thing. The crows ignored the researchers' clothing. They ignored their body size or gait. They focused entirely and specifically on the face.
What followed was researchers essentially mapping out a generational grudge. In year 1, specific crows were trapped. By year 3, those original subjects were still executing targeted harassment the second that specific masked face appeared. But years later, something truly disturbing happened. The number of crows attacking the mask actually increased. Birds that had never been trapped, birds that weren't even hatched when the original event occurred, were now attacking the mask. The memory of a dangerous human face had spread like a contagion through the entire population. They used social transmission and complex alarm calls to share intelligence about us.
And this culture of surveillance, it's happening all around us right now. We look at the sprawling American suburbs, the dense concrete cities, the complex highway systems, and we view these strictly as human domains. But to the crow, human infrastructure is something else entirely. It is simply an unwitting laboratory for avian adaptation. They don't look at our cities as an intrusion. They look at them as a giant, highly predictable, entirely exploitable resource. They are watching you from the power lines above your morning commute.
And their level of exploitation is masterful. Look at the crosswalk phenomenon. This was first observed in Japan, but it's now been perfectly mirrored in urban centers across America. Crows will deliberately drop hard-shelled walnuts onto pedestrian crosswalks. They wait for the traffic to flow and crush the shells under the tires. But they don't dive into moving traffic to get the food, no, they wait. They wait for the traffic light to turn red, stopping the cars, and then they casually walk out alongside the human pedestrians to safely retrieve their meal. They have independently observed, tested, and entirely mastered the complex logistics of human traffic control.
They are adapting to us in real time. In modern cities, crows have quite literally synced their internal biological rhythms to local garbage collection schedules. They wake up earlier on specific trash days. They observe human daily routines, pinpointing exactly which houses throw out the best food and at what precise time of day. They aren't waiting for the slow march of evolution to change them over millennia. They are using their advanced neural architecture to adjust their behaviors within a single lifespan. Think about that. They are figuring us out much faster than we are figuring them out.
Now, this level of extreme cognitive flexibility, it wasn't just some biological accident. It was a weapon forged in a brutal evolutionary fire. Crows are generalists. They live everywhere from the freezing tundra to the absolute density of human cities. To survive in those wildly unpredictable environments, while also navigating highly complex political, social groups and enduring severe predator pressure, instinct just wasn't going to cut it. The sheer brutality of their existence demanded an improvised, highly adaptable mind.
But all of this leaves us with the deepest, most philosophical question. What exactly is happening inside that mind? Well, a profound 2020 study published in the journal Science provided an answer that frankly shook the foundations of neurobiology. Researchers discovered that neurons in the crow's avian pallium fire in response not just to external stimuli, but to internal states. These neurons activate based on what the crow reports it is seeing, entirely independent of the actual physical stimulus. It is a primitive but absolutely undeniable neural signature of conscious experience.
Which brings us face to face with sensory consciousness. Sensory consciousness means having a felt experience of the world. It means that when you see a crow sitting silently on a power line, it is not an unthinking automaton just running a biological script. It's not just processing visual input and generating a flight output. That creature is subjectively experiencing the cold air against its feathers. It is experiencing the geometry of the street below it. And most importantly, it is subjectively experiencing the act of watching you.
When you compile all of this evidence, the deliberate tool design, the mental time travel, the facial recognition, the cultural transmission of knowledge, and that undeniable neural signature of consciousness, you are forced to confront a reality that completely shatters human exceptionalism. We have to coldly ask ourselves, what if intelligence didn't just evolve once in primates? What if true advanced intelligence evolved many times on Earth, taking on a vastly different biological forms?
We define our civilization by concrete, steel, and written language. But look at the corvids. They have accumulated knowledge, they have societal memory, they punish transgressors, they cooperate, and they have inherited technology. If we can strip away our human bias for just a second, we have to ask, what does civilization actually look like in nature? Could it look like a flock of blackbirds silently sharing memories of human faces across generations?
We have spent centuries studying the natural world, operating under the assumption that we are the only ones holding the microscope. We believed, without a doubt, that we were the sole observers. But knowing what we now know about their long memory, their strategic planning, and their conscious, calculating minds, the most terrifying question isn't whether we finally understand the crow. The final, lingering question we have to face is this: what if they are studying us too?